One of the first things we're going to need to do is relieve the cooling system. You want to make sure that it's cool to the touch and you didn't just come back from a road test. Press down, turn it counterclockwise, and lift away from your face. That looks good. I'm just going to set this just like this so I can remember. Let's get under the vehicle. We made our way underneath the vehicle. We found the red area right here. This is where the petcock is, and that's going to be the drain. Make sure you have a nice collection bucket, your hand and eye protection, of course, and if you have a little piece of rubber hose, go ahead and put it right on the little nozzle there, and that'll help direct the coolant where we want it, which is, of course, in the collection bucket for safe recycling. Just going to open this up. You can use something as simple as pliers or a flathead screwdriver. The next thing we're going to do is remove the right front wheel. So if you look right underneath the front bumper along the passenger side, you're going to see a 10mm headed bolt up there and then one over here. We're going to remove the two of those, and then there's also going to be a couple push clips. We'll remove those as well. One. So the next thing we're going to do is get the belt off of here. To do that, you're going to relieve tension using this tensioner right in here using a 3/8 drive. Turn it counterclockwise to get the belt off the pulleys. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come right up here. I'm going to give this a little spin and a wiggle. You're going to have a little bit of movement, but if you hear any growl, you'd need to replace this. This is the idler pulley. This one sounds great, but we're going to remove it so we have access to get to that water pump. 13mm socket, remove the bolt. So now I'm going to take my floor jack and I'm going to come right along the tranny pan, right along one of these edges where the corner is. I've got a nice pad. If you don't have a pad, use a piece of wood. And we're going to carefully go right on that corner, not in the center of the pad. And we're just going to jack up to take pressure off that transmission mount. Let's go back up top. The next thing I'm going to do from up top is remove this 13mm headed nut to get the power steering reservoir off of here. Awesome. We're going to come up here and loosen up this clamp, and then we're going to relieve all these clips. This is going to go. At this point, I'm going to grab the air filter. It's a great time to take a peek at it. This one looks great. Set it aside. I'm going to look down in here, make sure there's nothing going on. Looks good. I'm going to give this a little tug straight up. There we are. Let's see if I can get this unit out of here. We've got our wiring. Just pull that right down. Awesome. We have a nice clear view at this point. First thing we're going to do is use our 13mm and take off these two nuts. So next you can either take this off if it's in the way, or just use your 16mm with a swivel and remove these 3 bolts. Leave that one there. All 3 of those are the same. Set them aside. Grab that mount. Has a little ground strap on it. If your ground strap's broken, I would go ahead and replace it. This one looks good, so I'm just going to set this aside. So the next thing we need to do is remove the lower part of this mount. I'm going to use a 16 up here for the 3 larger bolts, and then a 13 millimeter for that lower one. Okay. Let's see if we can get this right up and out of here. There we go. The next thing we need to do is get the lower hose off of the water pump. You can either use some pliers, which might be a little bit difficult, or you can use some of these, which is a tool that's meant for this job. Right in here. Squeeze this clamp. Slide that right down here. Oh, that's good. Ready? I'm going to carefully remove this. Coolant may or may not come out. Now that that lower hose is out of the way, let's do the same to this one. Now that we have all those hoses off of here, let's start removing all these 10 millimeter headed bolts that hold the water pump on. There's approximately a dozen of them. There it is. If you wanted to and you didn't want to mix up the bolts, you can go ahead and put these right into the new water pump in the corresponding holes. Okay, this one's another short one. We'll just keep going down the line. Now I'm going to use my rubber mallet. I'm just going to bonk on this, try to break it free. We'll let the rest of that coolant come out. There it is. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's grab that gasket off of the engine. Oh yeah, that's on there. That is on there good. The next thing I'm going to do is take a razor blade and go right along the engine and try to make sure that this is a nice smooth surface for the new gasket to ride. So I'm just going to check the gasket. I can match it right up there. It looks perfect. It lines up great with the brand new water pump that we're going to be installing here. So I'm just going to put the two of them together. You don't have to worry about putting the gasket on backwards because, well, you really can't if you expect the bolts to line up. I'm going to take that top bolt. I'm going to go right up in here. Get this lined up. Be careful for that gasket. All right, I've got one bolt started. I'm going to start another one on the other side of the water pump. So that one's started in there. We've got a top one started in. Let's go ahead and start all the rest of the bolts. Now that these are all started in, let's just go ahead and bottom them out. Next, we're going to torque all these bolts to 9 foot-pounds. Let's get these hoses back on here and just slide it right up onto there. Okay. Make sure you put the clamp as close to the back where you got it from as you can. Obviously you don't want to spin it because it's kind of marked into the hose. Okay, I'm going to line this up exactly where it came from. Perfect. Next hose. Find where the clamp was. Perfect. Give those hoses a tug. I'm loving it. Let's level out that engine. That looks pretty great. Let's get the mount back in here carefully. I'm going to do it with all the bolts in the mount. Start all these mount bolts. So now we're going to torque these bigger headed bolts to 41 foot-pounds using our 16 millimeter. Those are torqued. Now this little 13 millimeter headed bolt, you're going to torque that to 18 foot-pounds. Let's get this top area of the mount on here. Once again, you want to make sure that you have this ground wire intact. If it's broken, you need to replace it. Okay. Get this nut on there. Do the same one for this one. Now we have to get our 3 bolts in up top here. You might notice it's a little bit hard to get the bolts lined up. You might need to either jack the engine up a little bit more or lower it down. We'll see as we go. Okay, so this doesn't feel like it's starting in. I can see the hole down there on the engine. Looks like it's close. I'm going to bring the engine up a little bit. There's one. Two. Number 3 right here. Let's give this a little wiggle if it feels like it's jamming. Awesome. Let's snug them up. So next we're going to torque these little 13 millimeter headed nuts to 15 foot-pounds. Let's torque these top bolts to 41 foot-pounds. Torqued. Let's get this lower part of the box back in. You want this part down here to line up. Down. Should slide right in there. Okay. Now if you look down inside here, you can see this little hole. You want that to line up with the tab that's underneath it. It's right about there. Just gotta get it so it wants to go down. There we are. Grab your power steering, set that back up on here, put your nut on there. Bottomed it out, teeny bit more, perfect. Time to get the air filter back in here. Set that right there. Grab the cover. You got these little tabs. There's one here. There should be one there. They slide into these areas right here. Just gonna slide that in, just like that. Bring this down. going a little further. There it is. Okay, put the clips on here. Awesome. Get this. Make sure you don't forget to slide that on. And then of course this right here. Line this up with that. And then snug up that 8mm/ flathead. Give it a nice tug. That feels great. Time to get our idler pulley set up back up on here. All right, it's nice and snug. Give the pulley a little spin and a wiggle. That feels great. Let's grab that belt. So we've got the belt here. We're going to start putting it on. The way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to go around the crank first. And put the rest of the belt up nice and high. Up there. Okay. Let's go just like this. The backing of the serpentine belt is going to go up and over the tensioner here. And then the rib portion is going to go around the power steering. We're going to continue on going up over the idler pulley, up and over that alternator. And then it goes just like this. It's going to come around from the alternator, underneath the AC compressor, and then up and over that smooth portion of the water pump. So now I'm going to take my 3/8 drive ratchet with an extension, come right up on here to the tensioner. You can see it moving. Grab that belt. I'm going to slide it right over the smooth portion of that water pump pulley, just like that. Now I just give it a couple extra little springs like that. Get this out of the way. And now just double check that routing to make sure you're inside all the grooves all the way around the pulleys. Let's get this splash shield up on here. You got 2 bolts that are going to go into the frame. Right in here. There's another one over on this side. I gave the holes a little spray with some penetrant, by the way. Okay. I'll put my little push pin in here. There it is. This one. Awesome. Let's snug those up with a 10mm. Sweet. Put the wheel up on here. Start in and bottom out all of your lug nuts. The next thing we're going to do is super important. Torque these lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Torqued. Let's make sure that the petcock's nice and closed. Perfect. Of course, we're going to clean up our mess when we're done. The next thing I want to do is test the pressure of the cooling system. Make sure that it holds vacuum. So I'm just going to use this kit right here. And what it's going to do is it's going to put force air through here, rush it right by, create vacuum inside the cooling system. You're going to see the hoses start to, crush down or collapse. And we're going to watch this needle go all the way up into the green. It has to go past the 25. Anywhere in between the 25 and 30 is great. And then it has to stop. Once it stops, I'm going to close off the vacuum, turn off the air, and we're going to make sure that that needle doesn't go dropping into the yellow or even worse, the red. Here we go. All right, so that's been holding pressure right there for a while now. So I'm just going to take this off. We're going to take a 5-10 minute break here. I'm going to come back and I'm going to see if this drops down below that 25. So now you just use your manufacturer specified coolant Or if you want to use a universal coolant of some sort, you can do that. You just need to make sure that it meets the specifications required by the manufacturer. This is going to fill the system. You're going to see this hose right here is going to expand back to its regular size. All right, now that I've got that as full as it's going to go, I'm going to go ahead and put this adapter on here. I've got a nice funnel with a stopper. I'm going to put in some of this coolant. Perfect. Now this is going to burp out any air that might be still left in the system. The way that you do that is you would start up the vehicle and run it for a little while. As it runs, the coolant's going to heat up to the right temperature where the thermostat's going to open up. Once it opens, more than likely it's going to end up pushing through any air that's inside this system, and it's going to come out the highest point, which of course would be here. As air comes out, coolant's going to make its way in, and it's going to fill up just the way it should. Okay, so we made it inside the vehicle. We're going to start up the vehicle. You're going to put your heat all the way on high, put on face there, and then go ahead and crank it up. At this point, you can pay attention to the dash, and that's where your temperature gauge is. Obviously, if it starts making its way all the way up into the red, there's going to be an issue. I'd like for it to come up into the middle, maybe a little bit above. That should be about where the thermostat's going to be at about 3/4. It's going to open up. You're going to see it drop back down again. All right, so we ran this for a long period of time. We got all the air out of the cooling system. We're sure of it. Awesome. Next, I'm just going to grab this coolant hose. It's going to be a little warm. I'm going to give it a squeeze, and then I'm going to push this down in there. What that's going to do is it's going to give me a little bit of slack where it's going to draw the coolant down and hopefully spill less. There we are. At this point, you can either take your leftover coolant and put it in your reservoir. If you haven't already replaced the coolant inside there, it's a good idea too. That's already full, so I'm just going to go right in here, and I'll recycle it later. Get that adapter off of there. We have our cap. Go ahead and close that up so it's completely tight. Perfect. We'll just double check everything. If you lift anything loose, make sure it's covered. Go ahead and take her for a road test.